Hello, folks. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. So, we are all come together to this wonderful session about API security in 2025. Let's go. So, feel free to join the conversation, comment, provide any opinions, and ask any questions. We'll try to address everything in live via the chat. I'm Ofra. I'm the CPO of Pint. Was product at several companies like JFrog, Celebrite, and Harman. And with me, Golan.
Hi, I'm Golan. I'm a CSO of Pine and been doing security research for most of my career, 20 years now. I'm very old. And let's move on.
Great. So let's cover the top ideas in this session. One of the things we actually continue to show to see in the space today is that application doors are more and more APIs, and we see it also in the previous year and expected to grow even next year. We see most of the doors to the application today comes from APIs. The other thing which junction with the APIs are LLMs. We see, of course, the adoption of LLMs is 500% increase, which is pretty amazing. But it's not only the old news about LLM, but also other forms of LLM, like the agentic AI trend that we'll cover also in this discussion. The other thing we want to emphasize as a growing change is the compliance aspect of API security and others that is becoming very serious this coming years. Okay, so let's start with the LLM. So obviously we see a huge adoption of LLMs, like we see it in every organization. The LLM threats, of course, becoming a very popular concern among AppSec people. We see a growth in LLM usage. We see a lot of issues coming, but not only as part of the conversational AI as we're familiar with, but also we see it as part of the raising vector of agentic LLMs. And LLMs also junction with APIs. We see that most of the LLMs today that are vulnerable are also part of the APIs vulnerabilities. So there is a junction between LLM and the use of companies of third-party APIs, and we need to consider this also as well as incoming risk, of course. So let's take for example, there are many examples of obviously of LLM vulnerabilities, mostly around prompt injection and others. So let's move on to Golan. We'll speak about one of them.
Yeah, so LLM was brought to our life and introduced new capabilities that we're all excited about, but they also bring new challenges, new security challenges that we need to be addressed. So the, we should ask ourselves how different it is attacking an LLM-based application versus attacking normal APIs. And we can see totally new attack vector like Ofer mentioned. We can say that prompt injection or jailbreaking is the new kid in the block. Lots of people are abusing it, using it, having fun with it. We see many groups of people exchanging ideas, changing prompts, showing the results, bragging about it. A lot like the web security was done back in the 90s. As I said, I'm old. So, but with the move to the adaptation of agentic AI, we see that the risk is increasing. Because with agentic AI, let's maybe explain what is agentic AI. Agentic AI is a LLM system and integrated with tools and data sources and other capabilities. And it's been tasked with high-level tasks or higher-level tasks, and all the action is done by the LLM with the feedback loop until the goal is reached. But this in order to achieve this, we got to give the LLM more agency than just a chatbot. And with the agency come risk. With the new capabilities come broader risk. One thing we can see here in this example And this is a real example from a real-world application that had the prompt injection that resulted in remote code execution. And the way that this is being achieved is just asking the LLM to execute a command on behalf of the attacker. And this is very different than the way we used to attack a system. It's just more like social engineering than buffer overflow. And the impact here is as severe as possible. And again, when we add new tools, new capabilities, new agents or more agency to this system, the risk is increasingly high. Um,
Okay, so we have now like a very severe attack vector of LLM, of course, in several forms. Uh, what are we going to do about this attack vector? So first of all, we need to take care of it like early in the development life cycle. We cannot, as always in security, we cannot just wait to the last minute. We need to do some proactive testing to use this way of testing of also those kind of APIs, not just the plain APIs, and to be able to identify the risk very soon in developing life cycle. We need to be able to limit the LLM access to our data. Yeah, now LLM can introduce, as mentioned, new risks. So we need to be very careful about which access we gain to this newly attack vector, of course. And of course, we need to implement runtime controls to implement checkpoint at the entry, but also at the exit, in order to be able to control the inputs and the outputs of LLMs today. So those are very important measures. This LLM testing and LLM control should be considered as part of our regular process, of course.
Of course, and we want it to be as automated as possible. Those are fast-phasing application. We integrate new tools and new capabilities fast. We want to be able to test it fast and as often as possible. So we should really consider implementing an automated tool to do this task for us in order to be on pace and secure.
Great. So let's take now a different angle of what is going on, and it's actually like very early next year. We are going to have the DORA asking organization to implement several measures in order to mitigate security risks. The DORA is aimed first to financial
Hey, wait,
institutions.
Ofer, I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
What is DORA?
So DORA is like a new compliance that we have this in Europe. It's like the basically Digital Operation Resilience Act. It's a new compliance aimed for financial organizations. And basically, this compliance put a lot of emphasis today also around application security and application security testing in particular. And it requires organization to handle security not just as part of compliance, not just one time a year, but as part of the regular process. It also has other measures of data transfer, of minimizing risk of data loss, prevention of leakage of information, and protecting data. But a big emphasis is around testing of application early in the development life cycle. So now it's not just a recommendation, it's part of a compliance. So this is actually a change that is going to be introduced early next year. And as we know, it starts from the financial industries, but it will become practice also for other industries as well. Golan, do you want to add more?
Yeah, it's actually put more responsibility on the shoulder of the vendors. Are expected to use secure products, and they are expected to be blamed or responsible in any case of a breach. This requires organization to have more robust, more considered of security strategy. And the fact that we are starting with the financial organization that are already really aware and really take security as something very, very important to the business operation. And it's a good start, but I totally agree with you. For I think we can see it going to other vectors, other sectors, and so just the first step.
Of course, so what we actually should do today, so we know for many organizations that the only thing they are doing actively is like a periodic pen test. It can be once a year external pen test. Sometimes there are some red teams that are trying to chase applications and the APIs, and they're doing it like just once a release or once a major milestone. We actually now need to take more care about involving tests as part of the regular SDLC process. We know that mostly in SDLC there are static scans that are embedded as part of the process. Now we expect to have more need for automated application pen test as part of the development process, not just periodic measure. And another aspect of it is even before the testing, we need to identify which risk we have. We know that there is a challenge today in organizations to be able to cope with the discovery of application, discovery for APIs. We see a lot of organizations with a distributed system that have multiple applications and blind spots of APIs. And it's not just to discover and know about them, it's also to understand the risk that any application or any API pose today. They need to have a complete gap analysis of the areas that they see those APIs and those applications. Sometimes you see APIs in production that are not documented. Sometimes you see APIs that are going to be in production and are not tested. So as a security owner, we need to understand the picture, the risk around the applications and APIs, and that's the second step also, then, of course. Okay, so now that we covered those 2 points, let's maybe drill down to the third aspect that we see a real change around what we call DAS, which is Dynamic Application Security Testing. And we know the traditional DAS tools are more focused on web-related vulnerabilities. Mostly those, like all gen tools, are very hard to consume. They require from you to be a security expert. Mostly they're used by security teams. Mostly they're using in a manual way. It requires a lot of pre-configuration in order to achieve results from those DAS tools. And also the problem with those DAS tools, because they focus mostly on web, mostly on crawling of web pages, are usually blind to content of application. And what we expect to see from the new generation DAS tool, that they will take care of all these complex environments of new applications. We see applications covered not just by web, but also APIs are everywhere as part of the microservices, many connections inside the applications, LLM that is being used as part of those applications. We need to maybe find ways to enhance or replace those old generation DAS tools with more new tools that approaching the new risks, that are more contextual, can understand the business logic of application and detect vulnerabilities, can be run automatically as part of the processes, as mentioned, shift left, not just be consumed by security owners, but maybe with DevSecOps department and developers, and basically be effective, be able to cover great or better aspect of the applications we have today, because today we have actually a coverage problem. We cannot really cover all the application aspects with the old generation DAS tools. Golan, do you want to add?
Absolutely, I totally agree. We have DAS, the generic DAS of the old DAS, and can't cope with the current challenges for the APIs, from LLM to a business logic issue. So we got this issue, we got the coverage that cannot be done properly. We also have they also suffer from code coverage, because oftentimes don't produce the needed input for the API in order to reach those deep parts of your code that need to be tested. And the other aspect is, of course, the integration with the existing modern process of development. Those tools are not designed to work in CI. They are too cumbersome to do so, too slow. The results are not super accurate all the time, require manual analysis. So not fit to this modern environment. And we see a new generation of DAS coming on that overcome all these issues and are also first they are well integrated with the current or the modern way of developing applications, and they are able to cover all the new cases, all the for APIs and elements.
What is so special about APIs that we need to now like treat them totally differently that we treated web till today?
Yeah, so if once when you come to test a web application, you you can have a bot doing most of the interaction with the application for you. You can have it pressing links, filling some forms, submitting those forms, and pulling the resources needed in order to this web app to run, like libraries, external libraries. Scan those libraries to see if they are vulnerable. Scan those different endpoints to see if they are vulnerable to normal code injection and stuff like that. But when it comes to a new generation, first you can't use a simple caller. You have to use a web-based caller because in order to support the SPA, which is single page application, you need some agent that is able to run JavaScript. And this is one thing. And the other thing is if the API has no web interface that should consume it, then you should be able to produce values that are adjusting correct for this API. So you can get all the functionality being triggered for you to be able to test it. You need to understand how the authentication is done, and you need to understand how you should use different users in order to have a deep coverage of your testing. So all those challenges weren't existing in the when the Dust was first designed, and are major part of the current problem. And so these are the, I think, recommendations.
And what regarding the inputs that are required, if you know from web scanning tool that mostly it started from crawler in order to try to hack the system. What is needed from the API? Why, like, for example, actually Swagger can help you to detect those issues?
Well, depends how we use the Swagger. If you're just playing the Swagger and putting random data instead of in the parameter values, stuff like that, you probably won't be able to do proper testing of the API because you didn't provide the needed information for the API to start working. So if you didn't do the authentication correctly, you didn't provide the authorization header correctly, then you won't test the endpoint at all because you get an error that the authorization was not done or was not done correctly. And if you didn't provide a resource ID that exists in the database, then you won't be able to test the code that handles this resource. So those things are missing, and in order to achieve those things, you need the new capabilities, new approach, and this is the new DAS actually. Those are the new DAS tool.
Thank you, Golan. So as mentioned, feel free to drop any more questions or any other aspects on the chat. So what did we actually learn today? So we learned that APIs are becoming like primary attack vector, not just today, but it's also going to grow in 2025. And it's not the regular API risk. It's fundamentally transforming because of the AI and LLMs that are also changing and are entering mostly also into APIs as part of the main interface today for applications. We saw the new regulation, the new DORA regulation, starting to ask organizations to conduct automated security testing inside their existing processes and not just rely on manual testing once a year. We see the changes it does, that old generation does cannot really cope with the changes of them and the involvement of the new applications that we have today in 2025. And we found that automated solution, contextual solution are being adopted more and more, also as part of active testing in order to help mitigating the risks. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Golan, for joining me. Drop us question in the chat. We are still here to answer. And again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.